Shyvana Jungle has a super weird but effective new build that revolves around Zeke's as a core purchase, while Gwen has been popping off running a setup that skips building Riftmaker. So we'll have all this and much more to cover in today's video as we bring you guys 10 of the most OP new builds and rune setups for 25.13. And just to note, we usually cover 2 builds for every single role, but this patch we were not able to find a single new ADC build that looks strong and interesting, so we'll be featuring an additional build for top and jungle to make up for it. And did you know that each game you queue up with the wrong build is another game where you're playing with a self-imposed handicap and just throwing away LP? That's why we've worked tirelessly to create the ultimate ADC itemization course. While others blindly follow recommended builds, you'll be dynamically adapting your purchases for maximum impact in every situation. This isn't just theory. You'll get side-by-side damage comparisons of items so that you know exactly why one is better than the others. The course features 24 in-depth videos with each ADC getting their own complete analysis, from which rush items are the best to what your later game purchases should look like. Wondering when to build lethality versus crit on Misfortune? We break down the math with frame-by-frame comparisons. Is crit actually better than on-hit builds for Vayne? We have the answers! So why handicap yourself with cookie-cutter builds this season when you can be running the optimal setup on every single ADC? For access to this new course, along with thousands of hours of additional premium content, click the link in the description below. And with that said, let's get into it. We've got a new setup for Aatrox that's looking really strong right now that one of the best solo queue Aatrox players, Nile, has been playing in solo queue. Instead of running Spear of Shojin as the rush item like most Aatrox players do, it's Hubris that he's been taking in its place. Second item is still going to be Sundered Sky to provide yourself with some much needed durability, but then third item will be Voltaic Cyclosword. So with Hubris and Cyclosword, you have much stronger dueling threat and the ability to one-shot squishies with a single rotation of Qs. The teamfight strength of this build won't be as good as if you were going for Spear of Shojin due to lacking that tankiness, but your ability to take over games in the side lane or in smaller skirmishes is incredible. The rune page to go alongside this build is standard stuff with Conqueror, Triumph, Alacrity, and Last Stand, followed by Bone Plating and Overgrowth for secondaries. So if you guys have been following the recent patches, you'd know that Horizon Focus was changed so that the AP on the item has gone up, while the damage amp for proccing the Hypershot passive was removed. This has in turn made Horizon Focus a more viable item on melee champs that have a more difficult time consistently proccing the Hypershot passive, and one champ who's recently been finding incredible success with it is Gwen. Not only does Horizon Focus provide you with 115 AP, which is the most for any AP item besides Rabadon's, it offers up 25 ability haste. You also gain 15 haste from rushing Nashers, so you'll get 40 haste on your 2-item spike. Gwen Q has a base cooldown of 3.5 seconds at max rank, but when you factor in that haste, it drops to just 2.5 seconds. So the catch and burst power of this setup is far superior to that of running Riftmaker. The stats don't lie either, with Horizon Focus being Gwen's highest win rate second item over the past patch. Of course, the downside is that you are a bit less tanky, but you're playing Gwen more like a melee assassin with this setup instead of an AP bruiser. So the best time to consider running this setup on Gwen is if the enemy comp are majority squishy champions. Taking Riftmaker instead of Horizon is still good if you're into more bruisers or tanks, since you will need that durability to outlast them in extended fights. Rune setup working the best on Gwen right now consists of Conqueror with Presence of Mind, Alacrity, and Last Stand, followed by Biscuits and Cosmic Insight for secondaries. With Gangplank buffed for this patch, if you're going to be picking him back up, it's vital you're taking the correct Keystone rune. With Grasp nerfed for 25.12, we've seen a lot of high elo Gangplank players swap over to taking Fleet Footwork instead. Now, you might be wondering, well, Grasp only got nerfed for ranged champions, so how is Gangplank even affected? Gangplank's Q is actually counted as a ranged attack, so whenever you Q an enemy with Grasp, you are receiving the ranged benefits instead of melee. So especially if you're in a matchup to where you won't be able to get in auto attack range of the enemy at all and will just be poking from afar with Q, that's where Fleet value has gone up a bunch. In melee matchups where you'll be able to weave in auto attacks more consistently in your trades, going for Grasp is still viable though. Just looking at the analytics, Fleet is currently winning about 1.5% more than Grasp, so you really need to be getting that melee auto attack value out of Grasp in order for it to be superior to Fleet now. Here's a look at the full rune setup as you take Fleet with Presence of Mind, Haste, and Cut Down, while Second Wind and Unflinching are for secondaries. Standard core build for Gangplank has you rushing Trinity Force into the Collector second and Infinity Edge third. This next build for Shyvana Jungle is such a wacky one, but it's currently her highest win rate setup for solo queue. It's an AD setup that revolves around rushing Ravenous Hydra, going Zeke's Convergence second, and Navori Flickerblades third. So last patch we covered a build for Nocturne that was super unconventional, and the main reason to why it works so well is because the setup gave 10 unique stats, so you got full value from Jack of all trades. Well, this Shyvana setup works on that exact same premise, as you get over 10 unique stats from running this 3-item core along with boots. The items actually have pretty good synergy with Shyvana as well, with Ravenous providing you with an incredibly fast clear speed. Zeke's is going to synergize really well when you dive in with R, as you'll get the slow and be able to stick onto enemies better, while Flicker Blades will put your Q and E on super short cooldowns, so your extended skirmish is really good. So for the rune setup, here's what it should be looking like as you take Fleet with Triumph, Haste, and Cut Down, followed by Free Boots and Jack of all trades for secondaries. Zyra jungle has been a decent pick for a while now, but if players were actually building her correctly, she'd be way stronger. What most Zyra players are doing in solo queue is they're taking Shadow Flame as a core item. In place of Shadow Flame though, what's working so much better is opting for Bloodletter's Curse. Bloodletter's has been buffed a few times lately and is super underrated on a champ like Zyra. It's so easy for Zyra to stack up the magic resist shred passive from Bloodletters due to all of her AoE damage potential and consistent damage output from her plants. Bloodletters also provides 400 health, while Shadow Flame gives you none, so you're way more of an AP bruiser with this build, which provides you with much more margin for error. So the complete 3-item core that you want to be playing on Zyra jungle consists of a Liandry's Rush into Rylai's second and Bloodletter's third. It's Electrocute for the Keystone rune with Cheap Shot, Sixth Sense, and Treasure Hunter, while Haste and Cut Down are the best secondaries. For this next jungle setup, we have one for Nidalee that former pro player Spica has been running in solo queue. Rush item is standard stuff with Lichbane, but from then on out is where things get interesting. He's taking Bloodletter's Curse as his second item, and then going into Abyssal Mask third. So the idea behind running these two items is that both of them provide your teammates with additional damage. The Bloodletter's passive reduces the enemy's magic resist, and then the passive on Abyssal increases your teammates' magic damage by 12%. So the build will be best to run in games where you have a magic damage threat on your team that you can really buff up in fights, and the enemy comp also has a magic damage threat so that you're getting value from the magic resist on Abyssal. If you don't have a teammate who deals magic damage, and if the enemy team comp lacks magic damage, then it doesn't make much sense to run the build, so it should only be run in those unique instances. For the rune page, it's Conqueror with Triumph, Haste, and Cut Down, followed by Transcendence and Water Walking for secondaries. A new mid lane build that we've been seeing Nemesis pick up on his Veigar recently revolves around taking Rocket Belt as a core purchase. We already covered the Twisted Fate Rocket Belt setup last patch, and now for 25.13, there's even more mid lane champs who are super underrated with it. Veigar can work really well with the item because the dash that you get from Rocket Belt allows him to close the gap and find catches with E. Just simply getting in range to land R is also a nice benefit to Rocket Belt, because if you're playing into a longer range team comp, sometimes it's difficult for Veigar to even reach his targets, so Rocket Belt alleviates the shorter ranged aspect of Veigar a little. And it's not just Rocket Belt that is unique about the setup either, as the rune page is completely different from what we are used to seeing on Veigar. Unsealed Spellbook is back in meta on so many champions after its recent buffs, and it's perfect for Veigar. Being a shorter ranged mage, access to summoner spells that can help you survive better in the mid to late game is great, as you don't really need a rune that provides you with more damage. A lot of the time, just staying alive is your main goal with Veigar in fights, and Spellbook helps with that a ton. And then for a second mid lane champ that you should be looking to take Rocket Belt on for 25.13 is Annie. It's not Rocket Belt Rush though, like you see on most other champs, as you still want to rush Malignance, as the item is just too good to pass up on for Annie. After going Malignance though, you can slot in Rocket Belt as your second purchase, and this is where it's found the most success in solo queue. Rocket Belt has really good value on Annie for the mid game because it allows her to find those Tibber stuns without needing to rely on having flash available as much. As long as you can get in range to land your stun with Annie, then she's going to be an effective champ, so Rocket Belt helps to make up for that weakness of being a shorter range mage. And for Annie's rune page, you want to grab Electrocute with Cheap Shot, Grizzly Mementos, and Relentless Hunter, followed by Axiom Arcanist and Absolute Focus for secondaries. And then for a couple of support setups for 25.13, a keystone rune that has started outperforming everything else on Rakan is Unsealed Spellbook. We covered last patch how Spellbook is a great pickup now on Braum and Bard, but it's looking like it's actually quite strong on a wide variety of supports. Rakan has had Guardian as his cookie cutter keystone rune for ages now, so it's nice to see some sort of variety come into meta. Looking at the analytics right now, Spellbook is outperforming Guardian by over 1.5%, so it's looking like the clear-cut best keystone for Rakan now. Running Spellbook on Rakan makes a lot of sense because being able to swap to other summoner spells increases the playmaking potential of the champ. Guardian is more of a defensive keystone, whereas being able to swap to summoners like Exhaust or Heal just increases the skirmish power of Rakan a lot more. Here's a look at the full rune setup, as you want Unsealed Spellbook with Free Boots, Biscuits, and Cosmic Insight, while Deep Ward and Ultimate Hunter are for secondaries. For the build, Locket Rush with Zeke's second and Solstice Slay for the item upgrade is meta. And then for one more support that is performing incredibly well with Spellbook that you need to start running it on is Rel. Most of these melee engage supports are just really great with Spellbook now, because when you are looking to engage a fight, access to summoners more often is just going to make their ability to capitalize on pick plays much better. Rel has one of the best snap engages for any support in the game, so running Spellbook to enhance the snowball power of the champ works great. Aftershock definitely isn't bad on Rel, but you don't need to play it in every single game now. Taking Spellbook when the enemy comp lacks a lot of burst threat will be where it's most optimal. Aftershock is nice to have to absorb that initial burst when you dive into a fight, but if the enemy comp lacks burst, just go Spellbook. Having more options for keystone runes and not just autopiloting one rune for every single game is actually so refreshing, and it would be nice if Riot were able to make more changes like this in the future that opens up more options and rewards players for actually thinking about which keystone would be best for each specific game. So this is what the full rune page looks like, as you're taking Spellbook with Hex Flash, Biscuits, and Cosmic Insight, followed by Bone Plating and Unflinching for secondaries. The meta build for Rel revolves around Locket as the rush into Zeke's second and Celestial Opposition as the item upgrade. Alright guys, one last thing, our rank up guarantee is insane. It's like signing up for the gym and getting a refund if you don't get ripped. That's how confident we are in SkillCapped. We obsess over making the best guides with top players, rigorous testing, and top tier video editing to make your climb easy. If you're ready to level up, visit SkillCapped.com and see the difference. So that's gonna round everything out for the 25.13 update on 10 of the most OP new builds and rune setups. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.